Hello everybody, our lesson today is going to be on fractions, decimals, and percents. So the two main things that you're going to always have to look back is this picture, which will be on one of your Google Docs. And what it is when we have a fraction here, so I'll circle it for us. When we have a fraction, what we need to do to get it to a decimal is we need to divide the numerator by the denominator. So that is 3 divided by 4. If I put that in my calculator, and I will open up a calculator here, and I go 3 divided by 4, you will notice I get 0.75. And I get that number right there. So 0.75. And now that we have gone over the numerator, which is the top number, the denominator, which is the bottom, and now we multiply that by 100 to get a percent, because a percent is out of 100. So in our calculator, we go back to our calculator with 0.75 times 100, and we get 75%. Now the next one we're going to draw out. So we have a fraction. It's 2 over 5. We're going to put that into our calculator. It's going to give us a number of 0.4 in the tenths column. Now to get that to a percent, we're going to multiply that by 100. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and hold on this shape right here. And I'm going to come to my square. I'm going to make sure it's black infill. And this is a hundreds block right here. What I need to do, that is out of 100, I need to fill 40 of them. So I grab that's 10. Now I can go easy, copy, Control C, Control V. There's 20, 30, and 40. So just to review, if you have a fraction, you want to go divide the numerator, the 3, divide by the 4, you will get a decimal. And then to multiply by 100 to get a percent. And then you see we did it this way. We went 2 divided by 5, which is 0.4. And then we multiplied to get to 40%. Now, what happens if I give you a percent or a decimal? How do you know how to get to a fraction or a decimal? So you'll see here, if I give you a percent, we divide by 100, which is the opposite of multiply. Thanks for being patient. And then from a decimal to a fraction, we write it in its simplest form. So 40 as a decimal to a fraction, 2/5 is not its simplest form. But we know 4 is in the 10th spot. So that would be 4 divided by 10, and that would be our fraction. Okay? Now, what it means by simplest form is there's a number that can go into 4, and there's a number that can go into 10. So we want to find which number is divisible by 4 and 10. And I'll give you 3 seconds to think about it. They're even numbers. That is 2. So if I divide 4 by 2, I get 2. If I divide 10 by 2, I get 5. And that's why this is the simplest form. I will show one more example. I'm going to get a different color here. And I'm going to erase some of this stuff as well. Feel free to always pause, to always, go back and review. So I want to just go over that decimal to fraction piece again. If I give you a decimal of 136, okay? So the rule of thumb here is the last number's place value is the denominator. I'll say that again. The last number's place value is the denominator. So this is tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So that is 136 over 1,000. That is how you go from decimals to fractions. Yes, we can simplify it. We're not going to do that right now. And I'll give you one more example of decimals to fractions because I feel like this is something that we always need to go over. We'll pick a number 43. 3 decimal 43. So that's 43. The last number is the denominator, which is the bottom number. So that's tenths, hundredths. So that's 43 over 100. And now we have our fraction. Now we're going to move on to another example. And this is what's going to help you with your worksheet. So here we go. I have a percent. You need to tell me the fraction, and you need to tell me the decimal. If you can't remember, and here's the percent. If you can't remember, go back to here, look at the picture. So I am giving you a percent. I need to go to a decimal. So what I have to do first is divide by 100. So what I'm going to do is 23 divide by 100. I'll go to my calculator. 23 divide by 100, and I get 0.23. So 23 hundredths. I'm going to come back here. My fraction is 23 over 100, and my decimal was decimal 23. The only thing that you're going to have to check is that the simplest form? Is there any number that goes into 23 and 100? And when we fill that in, we come over to our square again. We make sure that the fill is maybe a different color. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to fill in 10. I'm going to copy paste it. 20. And then to get 3, I can bring it over here, and I can grab this blue little line and cover 3 of them. So now you've shown me that the percent is 23. We've divided it by 100 to get decimal 23. And remember to go from decimal to fraction. The last number is the denominator. So that is the 3 is in the hundredth spot. Tenths in the 2, 3 for the hundredths. I know I'm going a little quick, but you can always slow the video down, pause it, and then watch it again. Now, I've given you a fraction. We have a fraction here. We need to find a decimal, and we need to find a percent. So I'm going to go back to slide 1. I have a fraction. I need to find decimal and percent. So here I have a fraction. How do I find a decimal? Divide the numerator by the denominator. Once I get the decimal, I'm going to multiply by 100. So I'm going to go to my calculator. 13 divided by 65. 13 divided by 65 gives me decimal 2. Decimal 2. Now my percent, and I would multiply that by 100, and that is 20%. Go over the calculator and double check that if you want. Times 100, 20%. Boom. Okay, now we're going to cover that in. We need to do 13 of 65. So we can't necessarily draw 13 of 65 because it's not out of 100. So it's actually 20 squares. So we're going to come here and fill in 20. Copy paste. There we go. No, sorry, I went the wrong way. Now our next one, we have a decimal. We'll pick a different color here. We'll go green. We have our decimal. I need a fraction and a percent. So decimal 18. Now what do? I'm going to go back here. So if I have a decimal, what I'm going to do is write it in its simplest form. So remember that the last number in the decimal is the denominator. Okay, and to get to a percent, I'm going to multiply by 100. So it doesn't matter which one you do first. I can go decimal 18 times 100, and that's going to give me 18% if you do that in your calculator, or just move the decimal place over 2 times because you have 2 zeros. And then our fraction for that is 8 is in the 10th spot, or 100th spot, sorry. So that's 18 over 100. Now, we do need to get this one in simplest form. just looking at this right now, we've talked about divisibility. This number is even, and that ends in an even, so it looks like a 2 could probably go in there to get something in simplest form. Now, when we need to fill in our hundreds block here, I pick my square. I'll pick green just so it matches the text, if that's what you want to do. There's 10. And I'll copy it, I'll paste it, and then I only need to cover 8 more. Down 1, sorry. So I've gone to decimal, fraction, and percent. Our last one is I've given you one that's filled in. So if we add these up, that's 10, 20, 30, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 37. So I know my fraction is 37 over 100. Now, how do I go to a decimal? I'm going to pause for a sec, let you think. And you're right, we divide the top by the bottom, which is my decimal is decimal 37. Now we need to go for a fraction as well, or sorry, a percent as well. And if we go back to our picture, it's going to show us that we just take our decimal and we multiply by 100. So our percent would be 37%. I hope this video was helpful. We're going to use this as an introduction from fractions, decimals, and percents. Can't stress enough to look back at this picture here. I'll clear it up for you a little bit. Oops, sorry. I'll clear this picture up, get rid of some of this text so you can have a good view of what this looks like. Just remember that it shows both ways, how to go fractions to decimals to percents, and then dividing from percents to decimals to fractions. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.